swag available at the Schrodinger's Box store on Teespring. You can see the link below. All right, now I have to wear my hat properly so it shows all the time, or give the intro like this. All right, what are we doing today? First of all, apologizing for not making a video for a while, but with my real job, I have had a very rough travel schedule. Speaking of which, I would be very remiss if I did not give a big shout out to my friend Jose over at the Hilton Garden Inn in Sacramento, California, where I stay when I'm there for business. And he is a chef in the kitchen. He is a viewer. He recognized me when I was having breakfast there because he made my omelet, the best omelets ever. I stay there only because of Jose, honestly. And he had recognized me, introduced himself as a viewer on the channel. And the last time I was there a few weeks ago, he had told me he's interested in looking at a scope. So Jose, we will hopefully use a scope in this video just for you today, maybe even show you some new tricks with it. But Jose, just do-it-yourselfer, works at the Hilton Garden Inn is his job, not a mechanic. Perfect example of a viewer of this channel where even though he's a do-it-yourselfer, he wants to build up his skill level with diagnostics because it's fun to do. And also, if you think about it, what does Jose do for a living? He's a chef, not just a chef, but at a hotel. Think about that during COVID. Think about that during COVID. At least a lot of restaurants were doing Grubhub deliveries and things like that, but not a hotel. And nobody was staying there during COVID. So I imagine Jose went through a pretty rough time, and maybe we'll talk about the next time I'm there. But the ability to have these skills that we show on this channel so that you can have something to fall back on, maybe make a living with a second skill set that you have until things pass by, or maybe you transition full time. But having a second skill set like that, how handy do you think that would be for somebody like Jose, right? So Jose, we are going to use a scope today. I hope you get a scope by the next time I visit you, and maybe you can bring it to work and we'll talk about it. What we're going to do in this video is, this is probably not going to be good for this customer, but the history on the vehicle, they brought their, I think it's a 2002 Jeep Commander, after it had overheated. Well, they didn't know it overheated. They said that there was smoke billowing from the engine, clearly an overheat problem. They drove it over to a local shop here in Colorado. As a matter of fact, they live really close to me. And they brought it to a shop that I am well familiar with, unfortunately. And the shop replaced the leaking radiator because the radiator fluid had drained out of the vehicle with the leak, causing the overheat. They also, I believe, replaced the water pump. They actually have the technician's write-ups right here. So they spent, it was some, I believe, $1,800 from what I remember. It's in here somewhere. And after the repairs, they found that the vehicle just wasn't running right. Yeah, I know. They said that over time, they kept bringing it back to the shop, and they really couldn't find anything wrong. And they eventually took it to another shop, an even more well-known shop here in the Colorado area. And these guys over here, let me see if I can find, because I need to find exactly what their quote was here. Not quote as in quoted price, because that'll floor you as it is. But in here it said something where they found a unknown engine damage due to the overheat, is what I remember it saying. Let me see if I can find it. All right, actually I did find it on my phone here, if you can read that. Among the many things they listed on their invoice, they've got cooling system, radiator leaking, heater hose split, blah, blah. Unknown damage to engine from overheating. Okay, so despite the unknown damage to the engine from overheating, check this out, they still recommended all these other services. Let's see, replace the valve cover gasket for an oil leak, replace transmission cooler lines for a leak, replace spark plugs. Here we've got all kinds of pictures that they show of issues here. What else do we got here? Recommend replacement of front tires, recommend replacement of front struts, Differential case leak. What else do we got? Can hear an exhaust leak. Oh my God. We'll get into that. What else do they got here? Recommend an oil change. Recommend brake fluid flush. Oh my God, this goes on. A ball joint replacement. Anyway, all of this stuff that they recommend adds up to, I think it was $3,800, something like that. But they never address the elephant in the room, and that is the car has an engine problem. The customers just want the engine fixed. That is all. Or at least know what's going on. So they luckily declined all of those repairs. And then they found me through another customer of mine. And that customer said, you need to bring it over to Matt, and he will tell you what's wrong with the vehicle. So we have some expectations to live up to. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get the scan tool hooked up, because I noticed there is a check engine light on in the vehicle. That'll give us a good starting direction, as it would have to professional mechanic shops. If you're watching for the first time, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. The other thing about it is I did test drive the vehicle around the block, and every single time you hit the accelerator pedal, white smoke just billows right out of the exhaust pipe. So not looking too good here, but let's see what we find. All right, a bunch of you have told me that you have purchased the X tool, bidirectional scan tool, for under $400 per my last review of this tool on this channel a few videos ago. So we will use that for this diagnosis. Let's go ahead and do automatic scan. Before scan, please start the engine. I kind of don't want to start the engine right now. Let's see what we get without it. Okay, well, we see we are adding up some codes here, and quite honestly, I don't care about the rest of the codes. I really just need to find the engine codes. So we're going to go to the powertrain module here. Let's read the trouble codes. And, well, it doesn't get easier than that. P0300, P0307, cylinder 7 misfire. We also got a battery system voltage low. Not worried about that. This is adding up. By now, if you haven't put it together, this car probably has a blown head gasket. Probably, and it doesn't look like it's going to be that hard to find out. So let's go over to our live data. Wonder if we can get some live misfire counts here. Let's see. Wow, there are a lot of PIDs available here, but I'm not seeing misfire. It's probably located in another part of the scan tool, and as a matter of fact, we would even be able to do cylinder drop tests through the scan tool with the bidirectional control, most likely. But what we're going to do is we've got enough information to move forward here. So what I want to do is let's take a listen to the compression during cranking first, see if we can get any clue there. Okay, I am going to take my microphone over here onto the engine. Let you guys get a listen to this crank. All right, let's take a look here at the back of the vehicle. I'm going to hit the accelerator a few times. Yeah, we got a problem. All right, well, this car clearly has a blown head gasket, but what was weird is, if you noticed, I didn't hear the typical drop in compression in the cylinder during that cranking. That is a bit unexpected. So what we're going to do, just to be 100% sure, because you know we're the ones that the customer is relying on. Well, they relied on other people too, but we're the ones that are going to come through. We need to be very accurate on this. Also, promised my friend Jose we would use the scope, because he is interested in getting a scope to better his diagnostic hobby as well. So let's see, what are we going to do for the scope? I think we will go ahead and use the Pico scope, because I want to show you another method, those of you guys that have invested in the scope and you're using that now for your compression testing, you're running into a problem more and more and more, and I'll show you a couple ways to circumvent that. Okay, so what that issue is you want to use your low amp probe. And by the way, if you're new and you're not sure what we're doing with a relative compression test and everything, I do have video on this channel. You'll want to search that. Most of my viewers are very familiar with this, though. And what we would do is loop our low amp clamp around the cable for the starter motor, and then of course hook it up to the scope, simple as that. But the problem is you find that we get these setups now with these really, really thick cables that are too thick for the jaws, or it's multiple cables that are kind of sewn up together and you can't really isolate or even get your probe in there to clamp that cable. Your other alternative is to do it on the negative, and here on this negative, there's no way I'm getting around this big, thick negative cable. So what do you do in that situation? So there are a couple of solutions to this. One requires an additional investment, and the other one does not. So, Jose, if you are listening, your first and foremost objective, you will want a low amp clamp. You will definitely want a low amp clamp. Now, if you can also pull it off, you're going to want a 600 amp clamp as well. Both of these are DC amp clamps. This one is actually an AC-DC clamp, so for those about to rock, we salute you for buying that one. And what this will allow you to do, obviously, is to get around these thicker cables. Like I can just take this and loop this around all the positive cables, or loop it around just the negative cable, and it won't have quite the sensitivity that the low current amp clamp will on low current circuits, but for a starter circuit, this solves the problem. Now the other way that we can do this, and I'll show you, is we can actually do the relative compression test just using the battery voltage instead of the amperage. It's not quite as crisp a signal, but it absolutely works. It will get you by. Sometimes you can get a little noise on here too and stuff, but it absolutely works. I think what we'll do is let's do both of these and compare them. So I'm going to turn on my clamp here. I'm going to put it in the flow of current. Make sure the jaws are closed. It's very important on these clamps you make sure the jaws are completely closed. And let's hook up the picoscope. Okay, now while I set this up, of course, if you're new to this channel, you're saying, what the hell is this? Why aren't you using a compression gauge? On this engine, we could absolutely use a compression gauge. But we got a couple of issues. The first one is, well, we actually have it easier because I'm pretty sure we're going to find a compression leak on number 7 because of the misfire specific on number 7 that we found earlier. But again, many times you don't find that, and you have to find which cylinder has the low compression. So you have to do the leak down or the compression test on all the cylinders pretty much. Sometimes those cylinders are underneath an intake manifold. You can't access them. This method allows me to diagnose this car probably in a few minutes, as opposed to if I have to take off an intake manifold to do my compression test. So, Jose, what we are doing here is 1/2 division with, it doesn't really matter the resolution on the 4 megasamples. That is more than enough resolution for this. 20 volt scale on channel A, that's because we're doing the 12 volt scale using the battery voltage. That'll be in blue. I also have my 100 to 500 amp range for my high current amp clamp that will also do our relative compression test. And let's go ahead and crank this engine, and let's see how these compare in finding the cylinder with the low compression, or cylinders. There could be multiple. All right. You know, again, as you hear, it does not sound like there is a compression loss in this engine. That sounded totally normal to me. So let's pause that and go back. Should be plenty of sample right here. Let's draw out a section. Oh, wow. Yeah, the compression test is normal. Okay, so as we can see here, the voltage, you see, you've got a problem in that you have very little relative voltage change. So it's not quite as easy. Now, there's some math functions you can do to amplify that out. But let's see, let's do, each peak is a cylinder compression. We have a lower compression there. But it's not significant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there's 8 compression peaks. And boy, on this, I will agree that third one does look a little bit lower. It's just not as easy to tell. This really, we need to do, first of all, kind of expand this out, which there's a way to do it. But the other thing is that this really works best when you have a total compression loss. We clearly don't. Let's look over here. Oh, yeah. We've got a bit, that is not that much of a difference. We do have a bit lower of a compression. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it doesn't seem to repeat either. So right now, I mean, like, this looks like pretty normal compression test. Let's move over to another sample here. Maybe this engine, well, this engine has, you know what it could be? Look at that. Look at that. Those are perfect. So this engine, what it may be that it has a coolant leak in the intake manifold as opposed to coolant leaking from the head gasket. That would be actually pretty good news because that would salvage the engine. So what we need to do, the only problem with it is that this really looks like a blown head gasket. We need to rule that out first because if you remember, we have a video where our compression test lied. We did a compression test this way and with the gauge. It failed to find a loss of compression, but there was absolutely a loss of compression that we found through the leak down test. So I think what we're going to do, let's get a little more evidence here. Let's do a chemical test right now. All right, you might be thinking, well, you know, maybe this absolves the automotive shops from not finding a major issue here or anything. Well, it doesn't absolve them from still having an unknown engine issue and quoting $3,800 in repairs outside of the engine. But I will admit, even people using my methods would clearly agree, it doesn't seem to be a compression issue. All right, so let's see here. We've got radiator cap right here. Ooh, there is a lot of pressure. Okay, for just cranking, I don't know if you could hear it, but for just cranking that car over, that was a lot of pressure. I've got another video with like 12 methods for detecting head gasket failure. We're going to probably go through quite a few of them here. Well, let's actually try a couple here real quick. Let's find that oil cap. All right. Oh, well, there is kind of a milky residue in there for sure. That looks like a problem. Let's get the chemistry test. All right, while this engine is running, I can tell you, yeah, I agree. You can hear what sounds like a little bit of an exhaust leak on the engine. I don't believe that's an exhaust leak. I believe that that is a result of misfire. I am pretty sure of it. The engine actually doesn't run too bad. Now, of course, sometimes you can get these parameters changing when the engine warms up as well. So we need this engine to warm up. I can see the bottom of the coolant there. So there is coolant. One of the things we want to be very conscientious of is the temperature of the engine. We don't want to overheat the engine during our diagnosis. All right, so as you can see, we've got our blue color here. This will turn yellowish if there's carbon dioxide in here, which would basically be from exhaust gases getting into the coolant. Yeah, it's already turning yellow. 4 pumps. It's already yellow. This car has a blown head gasket, and once again, compression test lied. That is so disturbing. that is so disturbing. You know, obviously it's tempting to do the compression test with the gauge. There's no reason to do that. The gauge would have shown the same thing. It has to. It's simply science. Now that the engine's a little more warmed up, maybe our compression test may show different. But what we need to do is we need to do a leak down test now, because our compression test lied again. All right, so what I'm thinking, I probably want to redo that compression test again. I don't think that's a bad idea. But also we know we've got a single cylinder misfire on number 7. Number 7 is back here. And maybe I should just go right to number 7, do a leak down test, and get this over with. And as a matter of fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. We're just going to take a guess on that. And I'm just going to do a leak down test. So I'll be right back. All right, well, this is the, now in 9 years of doing this or so, the 3rd time that I have seen a compression test lie. And now I'm really thinking I need to come up with a better way than the compression test. Again, I'm not mad at the shop for missing that this car does have a blown head gasket, because we are going to prove that conclusively. Take a look, looking for coolant on the spark plug or anything. Oh, I can read those spark plugs from my lawn chair. That car's got a blown head gasket. But I'm not mad at them for missing this, because quite honestly, 5 years ago or so, I would have missed this too. I would have just ruled out that it isn't a compression problem, and I would have probably said this is a issue with intake manifold leak or something. But what I wouldn't have done is be uncertain of that and say, oh, by the way, you need like another $4,000 of repairs that we're willing to do today. That's the part that kind of gets me mad. All right, we're just going to thread this hose into cylinder. It was cylinder 7, right? I hope this is cylinder 7. I think it is. Yes, it is. But I can tell you this, I'm not sending this car back to these people after they've been dealing with this issue for weeks and telling them, yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong. That won't be happening. I'm going to go ahead and put my leak down gauge on here, just because I expect this isn't going to necessarily be a full blown out dramatic event. But just in case it is, we're going to position here and capture the radiator neck. Let's go ahead and do that first, so that if we do have blown head gasket and we prove it, we'll see coolant fly out of that neck right there. Get some compressed air. Okay, and I almost forgot. I've got to bring the engine up to top dead center on that cylinder. I forgot to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm going to hook up compressed air to this hose, and let's see if we get any fireworks. Oh yeah, there it is for sure. That is a blown head gasket, folks. All right. That just took like less than a second. As soon as I hooked up the compressed air, you could hear that it was going to happen. So this car does have a blown head gasket for sure. I cannot explain why two professional mechanics unable to determine that, and recommend that the owner invest $5,000 in the car. Now what we need to do, we know that we've got it now. Maybe it's because the engine warmed up. We need to repeat that compression test and see if now with the engine warmed up, do we see a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together, and we're going to do that, and then I will have to let the customer know the bad news. Damn it, man, I almost forgot. I'm a scientist. We have a positive control now. One of the obvious things we can do, because I have the spark plug removed, we can see that we can find a loss of compression through our method if it exists. We have that available right now. So I'm going to hook up like we did before. We're going to run this same test without the spark plug in place, and we're going to be able to see that we can detect a loss of compression if there is one. So let me set up, and we'll be right back. All right, you can already see it. As a matter of fact, you could hear it too that time. Let's analyze that. It worked on both the voltage and the amperage. We can go from one cylinder loss to the other right there. Got a loss of compression, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again, lost compression there. Let's get a little better view of that. All right, there's a really good view of it. Okay, so we've got compression, 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 none. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, loss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, loss. Totally reproducible. That is as clear as it gets. You see the same thing here with the amperage. Clearly see the missing compression there. Jose, I'll be so excited when you get this technology, but I sure hope you don't find this on your car, buddy. All right, what I need to do now is I need to get that spark plug in, get the engine warmed up again, and we are going to repeat this compression test as before, see if it lies again. Well, see if we have any change in it. Look at that. Golly, man. Freaking compression test lies. Look at that. Look at that. That's just sick. Car starts right up. Right now it sounds perfectly fine. Golly, that is so disturbing. Compression test lying. And the leak down test, man, you know, I mean, that's a real problem because if you didn't have the accurate misfire count, I wouldn't be able to correlate an ignition timing signal with a low compression cylinder to be able to zero in the leak down test. Does this mean you have to do a leak down test on every single cylinder in an event like this? That is really a problem. I know you guys are screaming, well, you know, do the compression gauge, do the compression gauge. I will do it, I think, just to satisfy the people that may be new to this, but this is math, this is science. There is no possible way that the gauge is going to detect it when the relative compression test didn't. If that happened, then there's just no, it won't happen because science is real. Well, I don't know. Nowadays, people seem to make up their own science, but that's a whole different discussion. All right, this car should be warmed up now. Really want to be careful not to overheat this engine. Oh, it's warm. It's actually slightly overheating already. All right, and with this engine warmed up now, let's repeat this test. Wow. I mean, my mind is poisoned, but I think I hear just the slightest change in compression in the cylinder there. I wouldn't have noticed it unless I knew what I was looking for. Look at that. For crying out loud. Look at that. Wow, that's really problematic, man. That's really problematic. Compression test lied again. I mean, you can hear it sounded totally normal during the cranking. I will tell you, you hit that gas pedal, white smoke pummels out of there. Maybe it's only under really, really high compression. Well, no, that's not true because it's only 90 psi of compression on my leak down gauge, and that was more than sufficient to show that there would be compression loss. I don't even know what to say about that. I really do not have explanation for that, but I have seen this now 3 times. And we're going to go ahead and prove it using the old compression gauge. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so to do this properly, we need to get number 7 cylinder open again, and then we're going to get another cylinder on the other side of the engine to compare with. Again, we don't have evidence that there aren't other cylinders that also really would have low compression. We really don't have evidence of that. I could have very well put that leak down tester on another cylinder and found the same thing possibly. We don't know because we have no data showing low compression. Unbelievable. I will tell you this. I am not going to charge this customer for this diagnostic. This customer has already been through enough. And, to be honest with you, I almost think it's criminal what these shops have done to this customer. I really do. I just think that if a do-it-yourselfer can diagnose this in half an hour, that a professional should absolutely be able to have diagnosed this the first time, not recommend $5,000 in work, and these customers are just hoping to get their car fixed. And, well, you know what? In today's society, it's different. In today's society, we worship thieves. Thieves are justified. Stealing is just property. It's just money. That's all. And actually, I would be the criminal here. I'm the bad guy in today's society not because of what I'm doing or because I'm not charging him, but because of the reason why. I'm not charging him because I will not be made or broken on this. If I were to charge $100 for this diagnosis, which believe me, the customers would be more than happy to pay. They would be more than happy to pay me $100 for this because now they know finally where they stand and they can make educated decisions. That's worth well over $100 when they were facing a total of almost $7,000. But I'm not going to charge him because I don't think it's the right thing to do, but also because I don't need the money. And that's something that you guys hopefully will run into if you use my methods and you start doing things that used to be the right way. Let's set this gauge up here, and I'll finish that thought in a second. Let's take a look here. Okay, that reads just about 140. I'm not sure what spec is on this vehicle, but we're just going to compare it to another cylinder. All right, so finishing that thought, let's put it this way. So let's say our friend Jose, and man, I hope it never happens, but let's say we get another freaking pandemic. And so Jose puts up some of his own money that, remember, he's out of a job, and he goes ahead and he buys that scope. And he starts providing for his family by doing this stuff that I do on the side, and it helps get him by. And he finds that because he is able to make these accurate diagnoses, that people start really coming to him a lot. Like this customer. I stole this customer from that other shop. This person's going to come back to me for everything for the rest of their lives, or mine. And Jose will start doing that. And then he starts finding that he's starting to make money, because believe me, you can make really good money doing this without even taking stuff apart, just doing the diagnostics and not even getting your hands dirty. So Jose, let's say he starts doing that, and he starts making more money than before, and now he's got like an extra $500 a month. $500 a month. What would most people do with $500 a month? Okay, $500 a month, that's a car payment. So a lot of people would get a new car. They might buy that newest iPhone. They might buy whatever, but not Jose, okay? Jose does not do that. What Jose does is he takes that money and he reinvests it into what he's been doing. So Jose buys better equipment. Maybe he spends 5 or 6 months of that extra money to get a 4-channel scope, better than what I have. And he buys more diagnostic equipment that allows him to be more efficient. And now he can diagnose cars twice as fast as before. That means he's now got $1,000 a month extra. $1,000 a month extra. And what does he do? Does he now buy a new house? Does he get a beautiful Rolex wristwatch or something? No. He again reinvests that extra money. Now he gets maybe a bigger garage, or he gets a lift or he gets something, again, to be able to increase his throughput, grow his business, and he does that. Now he's making an extra $5,000 a month. That's more than a lot of people make with their regular jobs. So now Jose's got an extra $5,000 a month. His whole life has changed. That's more than a house payment for a really nice house. Does he buy a new house? Does he get all kinds of jewelry or start a car collection? No. He takes some of that and lives more comfortably, but he also reinvests it. Now this whole time, the reason that Jose is able to do this is not necessarily because of his reinvesting in the business, but also because he knows what he's doing. It's because he spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, maybe more than 10,000 hours. I calculate that I have spent 11,000 hours over 9 years learning how to do this stuff with the advanced diagnostics and everything. And it's not so much that people like Jose or I do that, it's that others won't. It's that others don't do that. They get an extra $100 a month and they spend it before they even get it. And they don't put the work in and the time in because they want to have fun. They want to enjoy their weekends. I'm spending my weekend doing this and I enjoy it, but I'd rather be fishing. But they did the sacrifice, they spent the time. The other thing is Jose takes the risk. At some point, he's going to have to connect up that scope that he invested in to an engine computer. And he knows if he does something wrong, he can blow that engine computer $1,500, maybe $3,000 out of his pocket, but he takes the risk that other people aren't willing to do. And as a result of all that, now Jose is doing very, 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 very well. And I hope he does. However, the problem is those people that wouldn't do it, the ones that wouldn't put the study in, that wouldn't put the hours in, that won't take the risk, that don't reinvest their money and they spend it, they now feel that Jose owes them. Jose owes them. And if he doesn't, it is okay in today's society for them to come to Jose's shop and steal what he earned through all of that effort, through years of effort, and steal it in a matter of seconds. I can tell you in Sacramento, this is a thing I see all the time. And Jose would be the one in trouble if he tried to stop them, because it's that criminal's right to do that, because Jose is perceived as wealthy or privileged. And they have the right now to do it because it's been decriminalized. As long as it's under, I think, $950, maybe it used to be $800, and I think they even increased it. So as long as they steal less than $950 from Jose, the criminal is justified. And that's the society we live in today. So if you start doing this stuff and you start being successful with it, just be prepared that you're going to end up being the bad guy. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now, but it does really aggravate me that our values have changed like that. Let's look at these spark plugs. Don't worry, I'm not reading spark plugs. So ridiculous. What I'm showing you is these are two different styles of spark plugs. So this is the one from number 7. I believe what they did was they replaced it with a new spark plug. This is the one that I'm taking out from just what I believe is going to be a normal cylinder. So it looks like they did a spark plug replacement as part of trying to fix that misfire problem, is what I'm going to guess that means. It's always amusing when I get these cars that other people have been there before me. It is always amusing to see what their train of thought was. But my guess is, hey, a misfire, let's do plugs, wires, and coils. Hey, as a matter of fact, I wonder if that coil is different too. No, the coil's the same as all the others, so they didn't replace the coil. That's what happens when you watch a 3-minute video instead of a half-hour or hour-long video to learn how to do your stuff. Yeah, this shop, I actually get, this is probably the 8th or 9th car that I've got this year alone from this particular shop with misdiagnosis. And here's the thing, again, I'm not going to charge this customer. They charged her $1,800, but she will never bring their car there again. She will bring her car to me. She will tell other people about that. Right now, I already have to turn people away because I've got more than what I can handle because I don't do this professionally. But the thing is that if you do honest work like this, you don't have to rip people off to make money at this. That is what I'm trying to say. You do not have to. And over the long run, my guess is this independent shop that I know very well, they're getting bad reviews and everything. They're at some point possibly maybe going to have to relocate to another area if they do this to people enough. And I will still be here. All right, let's get that gauge on there. Where's my gauge? There it is. All right, our last one read 140 on the known bad cylinder. Let's see what this one reads. $140. Unfreaking believable. All right, now, hopefully you guys have developed enough of a scientific mindset through this channel to know that odds are that is a good cylinder, but we don't know for sure. It is entirely possible that that is also a blown head gasket on the opposite cylinder that has the same exact amount of compression loss. That is possible. How would we prove otherwise? Well, very simple. What we're going to do is hook up the leak down tester. We're going to see if we bubble the coolant over in that cylinder. If we don't bubble the coolant over, then obviously we have overwhelming evidence it is not a blown head gasket in that cylinder, and a known blown head gasket cylinder and a good cylinder would read the same exact compression on the gauge and on the relative compression, and that would suck, but that's going to happen. Let's go ahead and get our leak down test. Make sure we didn't lose too much when it bubbled up last time. All right. And let's connect up. Take a look at the leak down gauge. Look at that. Absolutely zero leak down. Right there. Nothing coming out of that radiator cap right there. So we are done. This compression test lied. 2 ways. Leak down test came through. I don't have an explanation for it. Well, there you have it, guys. You saw it live like I did. Compression test lied. Again, in what, 9 years now, I think it's been, 3 times now I have had this happen. We have it on camera once. We have it maybe even twice. Maybe it's 4 times that this happened. But I know that I've also seen this off camera as well. And I mean, I don't even know what to say. This is a real problem because, as you guys know, my real job, I am a scientist. And I live on reproducibility and consistency and quantitative measurement. That is my life. And the compression test failed to do this enough times that I am ready to consider there has to be another way other than leak down testing every cylinder. We were lucky to have the single cylinder misfire on this, which gave me a good guess at where to go. If we didn't have that, yeah, I would have had to do a leak down. I don't know any other way. A leak down on every cylinder. And on this design, not too big of a deal, but if it's under the intake manifold, yeah, I would. And then I would have had to charge customer too, because that would have been hours of work just to tell them they've got this issue. Customer, by the way, is going to cut their losses on this car. I just talked to them. So, yeah, we'll have to look into that. But I remember vividly, as many of you guys do, in my earliest videos, saying that the compression test doesn't lie. And my favorite test, next to the leak down test, is the compression test. The leak down test, my favorite because it tells you where the problem is, but the compression test doesn't lie. And many of you guys called me out on, well, not many, but a few of you guys called me out, but also I had a lot less viewer base at the time as well. But there were people that called me out, and I told them, no, sorry, you have to be doing it wrong. You must be confusing it with a leaking intake manifold coolant leak, something like that. You know, and I can't apologize enough. You guys that called me out on that years ago, you were absolutely correct. You had more experience than I did, and it paid off for you guys. And yeah, compression tests can absolutely lie. We've proven it on this channel at least twice now. I've seen it myself at least 3 times. I got to come up with another way other than doing a leak down test on every cylinder. There has to be a way that we can be more sensitive in our measurements here. But you saw there was 0 compression loss. So what do you have to go on? We would have to find some way with the engine running. Damn it. The cylinder pressure test. Would the cylinder pressure test do it? Oh man. Would we see this through a cylinder? That may be the way to do it. And you know what? I have time. Who else is going to do this? But I'm going to put the work in, and I guess this makes me a bad person. But yeah, we need to do a running engine cylinder compression test. We need to do this with the engine running and see if we can find the... Wait a minute. No, that doesn't help. Do you know why that doesn't help? Because I still have to insert the in-cylinder pressure transducer into every single cylinder with the engine running. Easier to just do the leak down test at that point. So it doesn't change anything. I have to be able to do this without going into the cylinders. And I cannot think of a way. Maybe you guys have an idea. All right, so we are going to close out this video because it would be pointless. The point, we may see something and it may be interesting and maybe we'll do that in the future, but I need a diagnostic test. I don't need another way of doing something that's going to take me 6 hours doing every single cylinder. I cannot think of one. But anyway, maybe you guys have some ideas and we'll certainly try them out. But thanks for watching. I was going to especially thank my friend Jose and let him know I'll be back there in a few weeks and to get a Denver omelet with a side of hash browns ready for me. We will see you soon. The rest of you guys, I'll have some more videos coming up really soon. We'll talk to you later.